plant and animal species has specific genetic makeup. This genetic makeup is passed down to offspring, a process that is necessary for the continued existence of the species. But what if this makeup is messed up with? Then we will have what is scientifically known as a mutation, and it can either be beneficial or sabotaging for a species. In extreme cases, it can lead to animals and plants being different from their usual kind. For instance, animals have fewer or extra body parts. And in today's video, we will be looking at some mutations that have you questioning whether they're true or not, because they're just bizarre. But make no mistake, each one of them is true. Here we go. Number 10. The one-eyed cat. Some cute little kitties have always been a favorite on the internet. Maybe you've watched a video yourself. But in 2012, a kitten broke the interwebs for a whole different reason. It had one eye. And it was a wonder not just to the owner, but to the whole world. It's not just the single eye at the center of its face that drew interest. Played out, the one-eyed kitten didn't also have a nose. As you could have guessed, this completely removes any chances of survival since breathing is naturally impossible. So the wonder kitten died a few moments after birth. In a video the owners posted on their YouTube channel, they gushed over just how the whole one-of-a-kind experience of handling this rare cat was. On one end, it was exciting because it's not every day that you get to hold, let alone see, such an animal. On the other hand, it was, of course, sad that the poor little thing didn't stick around for long. Sad ending for the kitten, but it lives on through that YouTube video. Number 9. The two-headed snake. A snake is already a good enough scare for most people. Now, picture one with an additional head. It might be scary, but it sure is going to pique your interest. And that's exactly how A Snake with Two Heads was back in 1999. And the two heads weren't the only object of interest. The snake was also an albino, which made it even more interesting. The World Aquarium in St. Louis forked out $15,000 for the rare reptile, knowing very well that it probably had a few days to live. But it disappointed them, in a good way, when it trudged on for 8 years before succumbing to natural causes. And yes, the $15,000 paid off as the snake became the main attraction at the World Aquarium for the 8 years it was there. It is estimated that the rare snake attracted over 1 million visitors during this period. So why the name We? The snake had both male and female reproductive organs, which made it impossible to categorize it into either gender. So we kind of solved this. But perhaps the most intriguing was the fact that the snake had 2 separate brains, which meant opposing decisions at times, like moving. Most of the time, each head was trying to move in its own direction, which was particularly slightly for the kids who saw it. Number 8. The monkey pig. Seems like mutation doesn't just lead to extra or fewer body parts. It can lead to an animal having features of another totally different species, such as the case of a pig who was born in Ciego de Avila in central Cuba. The piglet, which became a star in both the locality and across the internet, had a monkey face, making it seem like a crossbreed between the two animals. Or was it? Not according to a majority of people, including Beth. Most people believe that this out-of-place piglet came about due to chemical pollution in central Cuba. Perhaps people should take responsibility to cut back on the pollutants. There's no assurance that such mutations cannot affect humans too. We're also animals, remember. The piglet's moment was short-lived as it died just 4 days after its birth. But apparently, mutated pigs are quite a widespread phenomenon. For instance, one in China had holes in place of the nose and had its tongue out due to an overbite. That meant it couldn't feed normally, so the owners fed away for the rest of the litter. On top of this, its eyes were different sizes. Number 7. The goat with 8 legs. One night in 2014, Croatian farmer Zoran Peperic had a pleasant surprise. One of his goats named Sarka had just given birth. But he got even more surprised when instead of the kid having 4 legs like any other goat, it had 8. Octogoat, they called him. Or was it a her? Mr. Peperic didn't believe it at first and had to call in a neighbor just to be sure he wasn't hallucinating. Aside from the 8 eggs, they found out that the goat had both male and female reproductive organs. As per specialists, they pointed to the possibility that there might have been twins that merged, hence the birth of the Wonder Goat. As in any mutation, vets expressed skepticism over the 8-legged goat living beyond a few days. According to them, there were two possible scenarios. Either the young goat will die since the deformity made it weak, or the mother would have nothing to do with it, hence dying of starvation. Whether any of these happened is still unclear, as the media didn't follow up on the story. Number 6. The 4-legged duck. Standing out in a duck farm isn't all that straightforward if you're a duck. Everyone is the same size and same color at birth, or at hatch if you want. But a duck in a Warrawee duck farm in the New Forest, Hampshire couldn't be ignored. The duck had everything normal as far as size and color were concerned, but with an extra 2 legs, it was hard not to notice it. Fearing that these extra legs would get entangled somewhere around the farm, the duck's owner kept it in a pen. Stumpy the duck spent most of his time in the pen, until one day when the very thing that the owner meant to avoid happened. One of his additional limbs got caught in the fence surrounding the pen. The solution? It had to be amputated. And so that brought the total leg count down to 3. After some time, the remaining extra leg blackened and fell off, leaving Stumpy to be just like any other duck. After losing his objects of marvel, the duck was still a remarkable one, having survived the mutation. According to vets, animals with such mutation live for just a few days. Number 5. The winged cat. Wings are reserved for birds for a larger part. That's why it can be quite astonishing to get these parts on a different animal, like, say, a cat. Just like the mutation in pigs, winged cats may be spread far apart, but they're fairly common. There's nearly 140 cats that have been reported to have wings, with at least 20 of these having been documented. Incidences of winged cats date back to as far as the 19th century. Most recently, these rare cats were reported in 2007 in China. Unlike most mutations, these wings developed later on in life instead of the cats being born with them. Seeing as the wings developed on a male cat, the pet owners attributed this to too much attention from its female counterparts, coupled with the hot summer of Sichuan province where the cat was found. But scientists have a different explanation. They attribute the growth to a genetic defect, a skin condition the cat inherited from its parents, or unusual grooming habits. The cat can't use the wings to fly, but can still make a flapping motion, just like birds. Who knows? Maybe they'll one day grow large enough for flight. Number 4. A frog with 6 legs. Actually, it was a frog with 6 legs and 2 heads. Froggy, as he was christened, was picked up from the garden of a seaside resort's nursery in the United Kingdom. What could have caused the many legs and 2 heads remains unclear, as Froggy escaped just a day after his capture. Guess the legs gave him some edge when it came to hopping away. But that hasn't stopped theories from springing up. Some believe that the many parts might have been caused by polluted water that the frog was born in. Others rubbish the belief that it was one frog. They claim that there were 3 frogs stacked on top of each other in a mating process, known as multiple amplexus. Just who's correct is something we'll never know. Number 3. Biosteel goats. While a great deal of mutations occurs naturally or by accident, this one is deliberate thanks to the work of researchers at the University of Wyoming. The researchers basically introduced the spider gene responsible for silk production in the genetic makeup of goats. This has, in turn, allowed the goats to produce milk with a special protein from which biosteel is made. The biosteel is reportedly 10 times as strong when compared to steel and can maintain the same strength, even stretched by 20 times its size. It can tolerate extreme temperature variation without losing these strength properties. But of what use is this new kind of steel? As it turns out, a lot. This material can be used in jaw repair, making better car airbags, bulletproof vests, and creating synthetic tendons and ligaments. So far, there haven't been any negative effects on the goats due to the introduction of the silk gene. We hope it remains that way. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber. So if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature you in a video. Number 2. Horse shark. Well, there isn't such an animal for now, and we're not sure if there ever will be. In other words, it's Photoshop. But this picture is quite popular, so we thought, why not talk about it? As you can tell, the animal appears to be a combo of a great white shark and a horse. What do you think will bring forth such an animal? Just like the monkey pig, this is purely by mutation, in a very extreme case. The most probable explanation here, as pointed out, is due to climate change. And again, if we don't take a stand against polluting our environment, it's possible to see these mutations in us. Number 1. The two-faced cat. Our last shocking mutation is yet another cat. This time he was called Franken Louie, or simply Franken Louie. He had 2 faces, hence 2 different names. A good deal of this animal's bizarre mutations lives for just a few days. And that's exactly what Franken Louie's fate was predicted to be. The owner, as soon as the cat was born, handed it over to Cummings Veterinary School of Medicine at Tufts University for a closer look. Shocked to him, he was told his newborn had just a week to live. But he beat this doom prediction by far and survived for a whole 15 years. Today, he holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest living Janus, or two-faced cat. So what did Franken Louie and the two-faced cat have twice on top of the faces? He had 3 eyes, with the third separating his face, 2 mouths, even though just one functioned, and 2 noses. For the brain and throat, he had only a single of each. Franken Louie died recently in 2014 by euthanasia. It was the most probable route for the owners who didn't want him to suffer due to the aggressive cancer he was battling.